listener. He sent us a WhatsApp message when we were talking about the scanners at the ports.
Give me your afternoon and I'll give you the answers.
Will the proposed amendment to the Nigerian Press Council Act silence the media? A lot of media stakeholders seem to think so, and that's what we're going to be talking about for the rest of the hour. Our big hard fact today is that the Nigerian Constitution says the press, radio, television, and other agencies of the mass media shall at all times be free to uphold the fundamental objectives contained in this chapter and uphold the responsibility and accountability of the government to the people. So that's what the Constitution says. As you can see, the Constitution itself has told you that my job is, and the job of every other press person or media house in Nigeria is, to hold the government accountable. Now that brings us to the Press Council Act. The Press Council Act amendment. Opponents of the amendment say that if it is passed, it would give the federal government, the federal executive, control over the press. And if the government controls the press, how will the press be able to hold government accountable? The question is this assessment accurate? What is it about this proposed amendment to the Nigerian Press Council Act that has gotten the press so pressed? Pardon the pun. And joining me to discuss this are representatives of various media and press groups. My first guest is a senior reporter for Premium Times, Esther Iranusi. Welcome to Hard Facts. Hi, Esther. Welcome to Hard Facts. Hello, Esther. I'm not sure if she can hear me, though.
Hi, Sandra. Thanks for having me.
Okay. And my second guest is the director of the Center for Media Law and Advocacy, Richard Akinola. Welcome to Hard Facts, Richard.
Thank you.
Lagos, we want to hear from you as we go ahead. You know the numbers. Women call us on 01-465-7190. Men call us on 0700-993-993-993. I'll start with Richard. First of all, what specific clauses of the proposed amendments to the Press Council Act do you have reservations about? And why do you have reservations about those specific clauses?
Well, there are a couple of items in the amendment which will be quite injurious to freedom of expression, not just freedom of the press, because Section 39 of the Constitution talks about freedom of expression for everyone. That's including media.
Right.
And that's why, and the only area of difference between Nigeria and Ghana, in Chapter 12 of Ghanaian Constitution, there's the freedom of the press, apart from freedom of expression.
Right.
So in our case, we only have freedom of expression. So, but which is covered, which is also covered by Article 9 of the African Charter of Human and Post Rights.
Right.
Now, coming back to the issue of the objectionable areas there's quite a couple of areas there because, you see, when the Minister of Information made a couple of statements and proud to these amendments, and of course, when he came to the public hearing, I was there to at the public hearing, so the kind of proposals that he was making, it was quite obvious that the government wanted have a total control, like the Nigerian Press Council be an appendage of the Federal Ministry of Information. Take for example, in section 2. Subsection 1, which includes, on the composition of the board. The composition of the board from that proposal is making representative of the media in the minority. So, which means that even if the representatives of the media of MPO, that's the Nigerian Press Organization, are not, they do not attend or they can take a position or decision without them. So, but which is contrary to, because if you say that it's for Nigerian press, then the Nigerian press had to own it. But first of all, let me disabuse the mind of Nigerians and those who may not understand the issues involved. Nigerian press is not actually against regulation. We must make that point very clear. And as a matter of fact, in 1990, as far back as 1990, the constitution of the NUJ, even there was an inbuilt mechanism of dealing with this kind of scenario. Because I was the chairman of the Lagos State NUJ for ethics, and we dealt with some of these issues and even sanctioned some members. And as a matter of fact, there was a particular publication that went underground. Now, after we came out with our position and sanctioned that particular publication, and that was the end of that publication. So it's not as if the media has been against regulation. No, even in 2009, when there was a similar uproar at the House of Reps, the House of Representatives set up a technical committee headed by Prince Tony Momo of blessed memory to fashion out a way out. I was a member of that committee, and we came out with a fresh draft of the Nigerian Press Council bill. And in that committee, we had the representative of the Federal Ministry of Information, News Agency of Nigeria, and Institute of Press Association of Nigeria, Nigerian Union of Journalists, Nigerian Union of Editors, and the representative of the Mass Communication Department. All of us sat down for 2 days in the Nigerian Press Council office in 2009, and we came out with a fresh draft, which was unanimous, and it was submitted to the House of Reps. And with that kind of, I believe that with that unanimity among the all contending parties, that should have sufficed instead of bringing out this fresh controversy. And so, because the way this particular bill was couched is like the Nigerian Press Council will be an appendage of the Ministry of Information, which we say no. That cannot be, because when you have, there are three professions, critical professions that have their own regulatory bodies. You have the Legal Practitioners Disciplinary Committee, you have the medical, that's for lawyers, you have the Medical and Dental Council, that's for lawyers, for doctors. So, and then you have the Nigerian Press Council for the media. So in all of these ones, none had in which, because most of them are self-regulatory. But it's only in the case of the media, because it's very critical. And of course, every government wants to control the media. And we keep on saying that if the media over the time, right from the time of the military, could not get media to be controlled via, these obnoxious provisions in the Nigerian Press Council, it can be now that such things will happen. So your composition is one. Then let me refer to some other sections there.
Okay.
The provision of Section 3, Subsection E, that the council will receive, process, and consider applications for the establishment, ownership, and operation of print media and other related media houses. This violates Section 39 of the Constitution, because already the Constitution has already given individuals to own and operate media houses. So the Nigerian Press Council cannot, violate that Constitution. That this particular provision violates Section 39 of the Constitution. So it can't stand. And again, don't forget that even at the House of Reps public hearing, we informed the committee that this matter actually is at the Supreme Court. Because Nigerian Newspaper Proprietors Association of Nigeria went to court on this issue. Okay. And at the High Court, level, 17 items were struck out by the High Court. Okay. But then the government went to the Court of Appeal. Then it was like a win-win situation. 50-50. But substantially, and the Court of Appeal was in favor of the government. So the MPN went to Supreme Court. So the matter is in Supreme Court. So now, if the trial court could strike out 70 items, which felt that it was quite obnoxious. So what will happen with this kind of amendments? Supposing, hypothetically, let's assume that Supreme Court now comes out with a decision that one way or the other. It means that all the things we are doing here is just waste of time. So, and we proposed then at the public hearing that why can't we just wait for the Supreme Court
to give its verdict?
To give verdict, or alternatively, then use the document that we produced in 2009
Okay.
That saves time.
Let me come to Queen Esther. I mean, she's also here. I want to talk to you about something that your organization said about this particular bill, and this is something that both your organizations have actually spoken about. So you've said that this bill would give the press council the power to decide what is news and what is fake news. Esther, can you explain what you mean by that and tell Lagos why you believe this is a bad thing?
I was going to start with that. Like, if you had asked me the parts of the amendments that I have a problem with, that's the one I would have started with. I think that's section 33, subsection 3 of the proposed amendment that says that penalizes fake news and all of that. So before I continue, I just feel like it is necessary to state that this is one of the many attempts by the government to guard the media, no matter how you want to look at it. And it's funny because they always hide under the guise of fake news, disinformation, misinformation. Just like Mr. Akinola said, yes, there's need to regulate the media. Yes, there's need to curb misinformation in the social media space or in the broadcasting space. But then again, we ask the question, who determines fake news? What is fake news? There is no clear definition of fake news. So when you see the NBC or the Ministry of Information sanctioning a particular TV station, a particular radio station for what they call fake news, it then turns out that it's something they were not really happy about. It turns out that it's something they did not really want in the public. I'll give you an example. I know some TV stations were sanctioned during the NSAS protest for using what they call it now, amateur videos taken with phones, and they call this fake. It's not like these things happened. It's because, they come from eyewitnesses who actually sent in those videos to the TV stations, and then they used it. And then you consider it fake news because you feel it's not supposed to be out there. So that's the major problem I have with the bill. In fact, this is one, I think the entire amendments, I have a problem with everything. But the fact that you don't get to state clearly what fake news is. The same issue we had when they brought up the fake news and social media bill. This thing has been on for a while, which is why I said it's one of the many attempts by the government to guard the media. There's no clear definition of what's fake news.
Yeah, but why is this a bad thing? Why is it a bad thing that there's no clear definition of fake news, or that they want to define what fake news is, or they want to define what news is? Why is it a bad thing?
I feel like if you want to regulate the media, one or two clauses into the NBC Act or the Press Council Act to penalize maybe a report or a story or something being broadcast that is in the public light, that does not have maybe hard facts, that cannot be backed up with hard facts. Yes, you can consider that fake news, but it is not clearly stated here. That's the problem. It's not clearly stated. The truth is, you don't need all these plenty amendments. It's not just the Press Council and the NBC bills that have been. There are like 5 different bills that are being debated. We're not even going to talk about the social media and hate speech bill that is still lying in the National Assembly. I just feel like if you want to regulate the media, one or two clauses. If you publish something that cannot be backed up with hard facts or that cannot be proven to be true. With real proof, with tangible proof, then this is the fine for it. You pay this amount, or a fine for imprisonment, and all of that. You really don't need to ask people to come and collect license, or ask people to pay a certain amount of money, or say that you're empowering the minister to close down a media organization if he feels it is necessary. So no, it's not a bad thing to say you want to curb fake news. No, we are not against that. Yes, we need to regulate the social media. In fact, there's a part of journalism that we call fact check. We actually go out to fact check stories and reports that have been put out there. So we are on the side of spreading or taking away misinformation from the social media or from the broadcasting space. But we just feel like if it's going to be clearly defined, one or two clauses to say this is this is that. If you check the whole amendments that they're seeking to make in the NBC Act, I was trying to count how many times they mentioned regulate, and I came up with 30-something. I can't remember where I wrote it down now. 30-something. You're regulating everything. You regulate all aspects of broadcasting. You're regulating everything, and then they keep mentioning the fact that all aspects of broadcasting, every aspect. I mean, mean, come on. So we just feel like one or two clauses, any media organization caught doing this without tangible proof or without hard facts will penalize for this. It is that simple. That's why I feel. I don't think like there's anything wrong with that. So that is one of the issues I actually have.
Now you've also opposed the penalties prescribed by the bill. What are they? Because a lot of Nigerians are asking, why shouldn't the Press Council have the right to penalize publications that carry fake news? Esther.
Yeah. Well. Okay. So I know there is 2 years, 2 million naira for journalists and a fine of imprisonment of 2 years or both, and then there's 10 million naira for a media organization, and then like I mentioned earlier, the minister has the right to maybe decide whether or not they should close down the said media organization. And I mean, these are penalties which I think are fair, because we know Nigerian journalists, especially media houses, who are out to actually give out the truth and real information. I'm not talking about the blogging space now, because the truth is, when these government officials see these reports that they term fake news from blogs, they classify everything as the media. The media has done this. Look at the media. Look at what the media is saying. Everything is the media. So it is fair, quite all right. Nigerian journalists take out their time to report the truth. So I feel this is fair. But it doesn't take away the fact that journalists and media houses will operate in fear. Like they would operate in fear. There's that fear that, okay, I don't know what these people will consider, because there's no clear definition of fake news. I don't know what I will say now that would trigger these people, that will make them to come and say, oh no, I did not say that, or I was misquoted, or this is not real, or this did not happen, and then they consider it fake news. And then before you know it, they're closing down the organization for an entire year, or they're fining one person 2 million or 10 million, or sending you to prison for as long as 5 years. So that is actually those are the issues
for you.
The penalty, quite all right. Yes, the penalty, quite all right, is fair. We don't have a problem with it, but it doesn't take away the fact that media houses and journalists are going to operate in fear. Of being penalized by the government, which is not supposed to be.
Lagos, if you just tuned in, you're listening to Hard Facts on 99.3 Nigeria Info. It's 20 minutes past 5 right now. I have on the show with me a senior reporter from Premium Times. That's who you just heard from, Esther Iranusi. And then I also have the director of the Center for Media Law and Advocacy, Richard Akinola, on the show with me. Richard, what do you think about this loose definition of what fake news is? What is news? Who determines it? Why is it a problem that your organization opposed? Why is it a bad thing to have, let's say, the Ministry of Information, for instance, determine what news is?
In the first place, it's incongruous for Ministry of Information to determine what amounts to fake news. If anybody feels angry over any publication that they believe is false, you have recourse to defamation. You can go to court. Law reports are replete with various judgments of defamation, and of course, talking about fake news. In fact, there are so many contradictions in all of these things. If you look at right from the time, even from the First Republic, there have been laws against the media, gathering dust in accessible books. We have publication of fake news in newspapers, that was there, publication of fake news, and we have provoking breach of peace by offensive publication. You have the prison presses regulation. We have power to prohibit importation of publications. We have the publication of false news with intent to cause fear and alarm to the public. Then, of course, you have sections 50 and 51 of the Criminal Code, that is sedition law, which has now been annulled by the Court of Appeal in 1982 in the case of Atonwa and the state. So, there's no nothing like sedition law again. So, what any government that feels aggrieved is that, okay, I will sue to court. Let me give an example. When General Murtala Mohammed was head of state in 1976. Dr. Ohombabu was publishing a monthly magazine, and he accused Murtala Mohammed of corruption. And very unlike a military government, that would have just sent soldiers, bundled the guy into the detention. Murtala Mohammed sued him for defamation and said he would rather he want to enter the witness box to testify and clear his name. So eventually, Dr. Hombamu discovered that what he published was false, and he apologized and he published an apology. That is how any decent, society is supposed to operate, but not to just, come with some funny regulations, because some of these amendments is just similar to what happened in 1993 when Uche Chukwumereje was Minister of Information under Babangida. The Babangida government came out with newspapers registrations decree 43 of 1993, which made all newspapers to register afresh with the Ministry of Information with very stringent conditions. And of course, going by the antecedents of Babangida, only government newspapers will be allowed. They were allowed to scale through that kind of hurdles. So immediately I went to court. I took Babangida to court, and the court stopped the government, and that's how the decree died. So because Nigeria is a signatory to African Charter of Human and People's Rights, which is now part of our domestic law. It has been domesticated. And Article 9 further strengthens Section 39 of our Constitution in respect of freedom of expression. So anything anyone wants to do, that we are talking about under the military when Chapter 4 of the Constitution had been suspended. So despite that, the court still ruled in my favor. So, and the same thing, Guardian went to court on the same issue. The court ruled in the favor of Guardian. So whatever freedom the Nigerian press has today, that's what I keep on saying, is a product of resilience, a product of litigation, a product of advocacy. So nobody will give a freedom on the platter of gold. And every government will try to guard the press. And it's unfortunate that all this this unnecessary debate is going on, because one dangerous aspect of this amendment is saying that in section 3, subsection 3, 1 and 2, there is a fine of 5 million naira or 3 years imprisonment. That's crazy. Then of course you have section 17, subsection 3, A and B, which provides that a journalist could be held liable for the offense committed by his or her organization and can be made to pay a fine of 250,000 naira. So this to me, that it doesn't make any sense. So and then of course you see brochure was saying 21 of the 5 on the proposed amendment that a journalist can be punished by the council even after he or she might have been found guilty by a court of law, and without the council. And so the council can now, even after you have been found guilty by the court, the council can still go ahead and still
punish you.
Bring out
now, Richard, we have to take a break. Now, I can let you go now, or you can stay on and stay on the conversation when we have one more person join us after the break. Which one would you prefer? To stay on and we'll keep having this conversation?
I think I have to take my leave.
All right, Richard. But we thank you for your time. Thank you so much. And Esther, thank you so much for joining us on the show as well. Lagos will be right back.
You want take smart inside? Just do cardless withdrawal with any Momo agent. Oga, madam, where is your card? I don't forget them for house. If you do cardless withdrawal with any Momo agent, anytime you need the money, but your card is there for yonder. Just go do cardless withdrawal.
tips. Africa Check. Sorting fact from fiction.
Good life, magic. Oh, I can't believe this is what we want to do. Look what gives me energy, we can be going all day. Mama magic. Good life magic. Yummy, yummy magic. My friend, vitamin C helps boost immunity. Keeps me healthy and my mommy worry free. Mama
Filled with goodness of vitamin C. Good Life Magic. Taste the magic of good life.
This is what we live for. To connect with history in the making. To stream every breathtaking moment. To witness Mbappe, Kane, and all the football greats. To be part of the journey to glory. This is where we live the good and the bad. And unashamedly give our all to the beautiful game. Live the experience. Watch all the Euro 2020 action live from Supersport on Showmax Pro. Sign up at showmax.com.
Let's talk about the life you desire. A fantastic job, great education for your kids, exotic vacations, and finally, retiring well, knowing that you've secured your family's financial needs. It's beautiful when you think of it, right? But without the right plan, all these dreams could just be wishful thinking. My Here's Plan from Here's Life combines savings and life insurance to secure your child's future. We pay an agreed amount up to 5 million naira or more to your child or beneficiary if the unforeseen happens to you, their provider. This way, your dream for your child continues as planned. Visit www.here'slifeassurance.com to get started. Here's Life. Tell us your dreams.
The European club football season is over, but football never sleeps. Enter the UEFA European Football Championship. The pandemic could only delay, but never deny the fans the excitement they crave as the Euros take center stage. It's Euro 2020 in 2021, a tournament with a difference, with scenes all over the European continent, traversing state lines and capitals, from Rome to Baku, St. Petersburg, Amsterdam, Bucharest, Glasgow, Copenhagen, Seville, Munich, and London. The coverage is global, and the cast nationwide.
They seem to keep hold of the ball, see so much of the ball, but at the end of the day, they tend to do little or nothing with the ball.
Floated into the box! It's in!
A player who's been having a renaissance after season.
He connected to the pass like a socket, fired the shot like a rocket.
From no other person but Rafael Varane.
What they want to do is sit back, where your weaknesses, and then when they get the ball, they counter-attack you.
It was a brilliant piece of play by Karim Benzema.
But they decide against that counter-attack and go all the way back.
That's beautiful. Trent Alexander-Arnold, 38 meters. This is your goal of the week.
When you defend, you can defend for 91 minutes, and just for 1 minute, everything will change.
He completes his hat trick. He's in the pursuit of perfection.
Best days are behind him already, and the young managers have taken up the mantle.
Covering every blade of grass for a full month from 11th June to 11th July 2021 on Nigeria's #1 radio station for sports and talk, Nigeria Info. Reach out for sponsorship and advertising. Euro 2020 on Nigeria Info. It's live football, just the way you like it.
99.3 Nigeria Info, your #1 station for talk. Let's talk.
You're still listening to Hard Facts on 99.3 Nigeria Info. Today's big hard fact is facing the opposition to the Nigerian Press Council Act from the Nigerian Press. Amendments to the Nigerian Press Council Act from the Nigerian Press. Now, I'm joined by the director of the International Press Center, Lanre Arogundade. Welcome to Hard Facts.
Thank you very much for having me on your show. Good evening.
Good evening. Can you put your video on so that the people who are watching on Facebook can see you?
Well, you would have to give me some few minutes for that.
Okay. Well, that's fine.
Radio, you were not going to see my face.
Yeah, but we're doing 21st century radio now, where we see your face.
So I shouldn't be a 21st century man, isn't it? Oh
But
my
hey, it's
God.
good to have you on the show, man. Before we had you join, we had guests in the first half, and they talked about what they saw as the
So it's okay. We
problems.
continue like this, I hope.
Okay, yeah, it's okay. It's fine. So,
Okay, thanks.
so,
Thanks.
so,
All
so,
right.
so my guests in the first half talked about what they saw as the problems with the amendments to the Press Council Act. They talked about giving the presidency and the information ministry control over the press council, giving the press council in turn control over what is and what isn't fake news and the power to punish. What do you believe is the end game of this legislation, Lanre?
Well, I don't see any end gain for the legislation if it passes as it is. The guests who came earlier, as you rightly said, have pointed out some of the challenges, with this. And I do not see how that can be beneficial, to the media. At the end of the day, we're looking at a piece of legislation that would further curtail, press freedom, that will violate media independence, and essentially make the Nigerian media an extension or a department of the Office of the Minister of Information. That is the implication that I see as far as this legislation is concerned. And so you have, provisions or sections, including the one that says that the National Press Code shall be drawn up with the approval of the Minister of Information. So it's the minister that approves the code of conduct for the media. It's the minister that, recommends the appointment of the chairman of the board. All these cannot serve the interests, of the media. And the point needs to also be made that it's not as if the media is against regulation. I'm not against regulation.
But the media is already regulated.
The media is already regulated. And so the impression should not be given that the media does not want regulation. What we're really saying is that any regulation must be within the framework of best practices when it comes to upholding media freedom and freedom of expression. Another thing about this particular bill, and it's not peculiar to the Nigerian Press Council Act, because we also have the National Broadcasting Act, which establishes the National Broadcasting Commission.
Right.
What is worrisome is that when it comes to media, the oversight function of the National Assembly is effectively removed, whereas for other regulatory agencies, for example, the National Communications Commission, the appointment of the board is subject to the approval of the National Assembly. But when it comes to media, everything is limited to the office of the minister and then the president. And we're saying that that should not be the case in a democracy, that these two bodies must be independent of the government of the day, politically independent in terms of the composition of their board, independent in terms of the composition of the members of the board, so that government nominees do not constitute the majority, and also independent financially. One of the proposals that we've made is that their funding should be through the Consolidated Revenue Fund. That is, it should be on the first line charge. So these are the fundamental issues we're raising as far as this piece of legislation is concerned.
Now, how much input did members of the press have in the drafting of this bill? I mean, was the media consulted in any structured way?
Not at all. Absolutely no input. Absolutely no input.
How do you shave a man's head in his absence?
It's strange, really. And this point was made at the public hearing. One of the former presidents of the Nigerian Union of Journalists, Sani Zoro, it was, who told the House of Representatives Committee that organized the public hearing that they needed to have consulted with media stakeholders before rushing to put together the amendments, and that if that they still needed to dialogue, with media stakeholders. If they had consulted, we'll have put a number of proposals before them. And one of such proposals I did mention at the public hearing, that since we're going through a constitutional review process, what we expect the National Assembly to be doing as representatives of the people as the institution that actually defines democracy. Because don't forget that we would normally have executives and the judiciary. We had the executive and judiciary under the military.
Right.
But what we didn't have was the parliament. So in a sense, it's actually the existence of the National Assembly that makes the current civil rule a democratic one.
That's right.
So we made that point to them and then said that if they look at, not far away, we're not looking at America, we're not looking at Britain, we're looking at Ghana, 45 minutes flight from Nigeria. If you look at their constitution, it's a model that Nigeria should emulate. Chapter 12 of the Ghanaian Constitution is titled Freedom and Responsibility of the Press. So it guarantees the freedom of the press, but at the same time says the press has certain responsibilities that they must fulfill. And those responsibilities include ethical and professional responsibilities. The National Mass Media Commission is also a creation of the Ghanaian Constitution. It's in that section. And the composition reflects the diversity of the society, including representatives of what we call the Bar Association here in Nigeria, representatives of the women, representatives of the Ghanaian Journalists Association, and so on and so forth. So the National Mass Media Commission in Ghana is a creation of the law, is a creation of the statute. So to that extent, the funding comes from government. So it gets funded and it's not handicapped. One other thing that is written into the Ghanaian Constitution, the sections I'm talking about, I'm talking of chapter 12, and I think it runs from like section 160 something to 173. It says that editors of state media or public media, the one we call government media here, shall not be appointed by the government. So there's a way in which you have a constitutional protection of press freedom. So that is a model that we are recommending to them. A model that, if you like, combines both what we call the statutory regulation and the institutional regulation. So it's a creation of the law, but it allows media organizations, media professional bodies to have a say in the regulation of their own affairs. So these are the kind of ideas that would have put before the legislators if they had consulted us. And of course, there are other models all over the world.
You know, I had Richard Akinola on the show with me before you joined in the first half of the show,
I see. Okay.
And he mentions that as far back as 2009, they had a draft that they already gave to the National Assembly, amendments to the National Press Council Act, and that one isn't as restrictive as the one that is currently being proposed. And I have to ask, let's say that this current bill passes as is. Can you paint Lagos a picture of what the new landscape for journalism would look like and how that would affect everyday Nigerians? I'm serious, because I also had a senior reporter from... Go ahead.
Yeah. We're going to have a situation where, as a newspaper organization, you would now have to register with the Nigerian Press Council, which in itself will be violating Section 39 of the Constitution. I'm sure Richard will probably have mentioned this. Then we also have a situation where the Nigerian Press Council could revoke your license if it believes that you have done something wrong, that maybe you've done something non-ethical, because the law provides for them to be able to revoke your license, which means that they could just stop a newspaper from publishing without giving that newspaper any opportunity probably to do a retraction or to correct itself where a mistake is made. But the truth of the matter is that you can't run a perfect media. There are times when, for one reason or the other, in spite of all due diligence, you might still put a wrong information out there in the public.
And now they've made it even a bit more difficult, because they now want to be able to tell you what is news. They now want to be able to tell you what is fake news.
Exactly,
and there's no definition of what fake news is.
So now that they say that the code will be approved by the minister, so the minister can just say, oh, I'm of the opinion that this particular news reporter has violated this code. Then the next thing, the license is withdrawn. I can't just want to imagine what the situation will be with the media if this piece of legislation is passed. And that is why we're saying that we must stop it at all. I mean, we just have to stop it using all legitimate means. because of the grave implications that it would have, for the media, including hefty fines, including the fact that journalists could be sent to jail. It's like criminalizing journalism. And these are just the danger posed that we have. And we're not saying that, we have other professional bodies that are regulated where there are.
Go ahead.
Where they make mistakes. But in the case of the media, it's all about hefty fines, possible jail term, revocation of license. It's just strange. Nowhere it's done. And if you also look at the composition of the board, the bill as it is now provides for a 9-member board, out of which about 5 will essentially be government nominees, which means the 5 could just sit there, meet and take the decisions ab initio without consultation, with the others. So these processes are absolutely, flawed. They are even extending the jurisdiction of the press council to say the other media. They are trying to bring in internet, social media, all kinds of, ideas that portend, great danger. And I feel that for the purpose of the public, we're doing all this, yes, because we're media, we want, media freedom. But we're also doing this because if they get away with these legislations, it would essentially affect the right of the public to know. And in any case, the underlying principle of freedom of the press itself is the right of the public to know. If the public is not there for us to provide information, for us to communicate with, the media itself will not, exist. So we should not forget that fact that the whole idea of media, freedom itself exists within the context of the right of the citizens to know. Where you have a regulatory agency that beats down on the neck of the media, where you have a regulatory agency that makes it difficult for the media to act independently, then the right of the public to know is affected. Because at the end of the day, would only be communicating information that pleases the government of the day.
Lagos, join the conversation. 0700-993-993-993. Women, call us on 01-465-7190. 01-465-7190. We've got WhatsApp as well. WhatsApp is 080-959-75805. What are your thoughts on the conversation that we've been having since 5 p.m.? We've had a senior reporter from Premium Times join us. We also had the director of the Center for Media Law and Advocacy join us. And now we have yet another guest, and he's the director of the International Press Center. Oladipo is relay. He's our first caller. Hi, Oladipo.
Yeah, good afternoon. Good evening.
Good evening. Thanks for calling.
Yeah, my take this evening is this. If this government actually meant well, some of these things will not be coming into place. Let me give you an instance. Like your guest said, who defines hate speech? I don't know. See, we keep duplicating, and that is why there is too much bureaucracy everywhere. And you see these things, people continue to extort you here and there, left and right. For me, if this thing if it is get true, let the concerned guild, let them stand their feet and fight it legally, like they have said, so that this thing will not go through, because it's going to be too much terrible for this nation. Thank you, and God bless Nigeria. This is Pastor Oladipo.
Oladipo, thank you so much for calling us. It's interesting that he says fight it, because Richard also mentions that there's actually a case currently at the Supreme Court about, some of the amendments that are currently in the Press Council Act. We've got Dixon in Ikeja on the line. Hi, Dixon.
Yeah, good evening.
Good evening.
Sandra, we're in trouble. Serious trouble. The media and the judiciary, definitely the last hope of a common man. Without accurate information that defends the citizenry, and without the judiciary standing up for what is right, the society is gone. That's dictatorship. I think Nigerians, not only the media, Nigerians in general, we should rise up to reject this implantation of what will not favor the society. I think the military regimes need to be better than what we are having as democracy now. Because even in the military regime, the clampdown on media was not as stiff as what we are having now. The media is already regulated. So I don't know why they are doing this to us. Thank you.
Dixon, thank you for calling. Samuel in Mowe, hi.
Hello.
Hello.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Sandra.
Yes, welcome.
Thanks for all your facts you are dishing out to us. We are a blessing to all of us.
Thank you.
Okay. The press, I think nobody will fight for the press than the press itself. Some people must go to court on this issue before the bill is passed. It happened in 1983. History is repeating itself. The reform was created by the same president we have today to gang the press there. And they are going the same way again. And what they are trying to do is that the people cannot talk. Now we cannot protest. Now we cannot gather and say our mind. The press that we are talking to, if at times it's only your station and few that can even listen to us. If we are talking much, they will stop us from talking on the radio. What do we do now? I think the court is the last arbiter of a poor man. The press should approach the court for interpretation.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Samuel, for calling. Lanre, do you agree with the people who say, number one, that things for the press are worse now than they were under military rule? That's number one. And number two, is this a fight for just the press, or is there something the people can do, to help the press fight this?
Well, I mean, if some people have said that things are worse off than we have under the military, they may be right in a sense, because we're supposed to have a higher standard of protection of the rights of the people under a democracy or under the civil rule than the military. The military, at least, they didn't pretend to be democratic. And I do recall that when the then General Buhari took over power, the first thing he said was that he was going to tamper with the press, which in itself it's a paradox. It's ironic, and we can even relate it to the present situation. You say you are fighting corruption and you are gagging the press, whereas it is this same press that is given the constitutional mandate in Section 22 of the Constitution to hold government accountable to the people, to monitor governance and hold government accountable to the people. In essence, you are trying to make it difficult for the media to hold you accountable. And that, for me, in itself, is a negation of the so-called fight, against corruption. And although the last caller said the press should fight for itself, yes, the press should fight for itself. But I think that the society should also join the press to fight for itself. Like I said earlier, we exist because the society exists. I always make this point that when we speak of the estates, we say, the executive are the fourth estate of the realm, the legislature is the second, the judiciary the third, and the media is the fourth estate, because we have that constitutional obligation. But there's a fifth estate that encompasses all of us, and that is the larger society. And that's why I said what they are trying to do really is to prevent the citizens from knowing the truth about their own state of affairs. Otherwise, why would you want to gag the press the way they are trying to do? I know your focus is the Nigerian Press Council, Act. I could understand because you are a broadcast media. But let me mention a provision in the proposed amendment to the National Broadcasting Act. There's an amendment there under functions, I think Section 2N, that says that a broadcast media could be fined or could be shut down if it is believed to be in the public interest. Now, we have a situation where you ask yourself, who defines public interest? And then if you say something is in the public interest, is it an unelected body that will decide on the public interest, or a body that's meant to just regulate the media? So for me, these are just the fundamental issues. And like the caller said, the media is already regulated. To operate as a business, you are registered with the Corporate Affairs Commission. So why are you then saying that we should register again with the Nigerian Press Council and then give it the powers to revoke your license? This in itself is even related to the business community. Now, The media is a business. We do about 3 things in the media. Yes, we communicate, we provide information, we educate, we entertain, but it's also a business. People invest in the media for the purposes of making profits or for the purposes of making money. So there are 2 sides of the media. On one side of the media is to perform public interest functions, to provide services that benefit the society.
Mm-hmm.
The other side of it is business. When you have this kind of legislation, you are discouraging investment. So these provisions themselves are even, anti-business.
Lanre.
And it does not show seriousness. Yes.
Yes, let's leave it at that. I wish we had more time, but unfortunately we do not. I do have a feeling that I'll drag you back to this show, though, so that we can talk about this some more. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much for having me on your show, and thanks for your interest in this subject matter.
Lagos. We'll take a break and then hand you over to Rufai for conversations. I'm Sandra Ezekwesili on social media. Find me there. Let's talk. Let's keep the conversation going. Coming up is the news at 6 o'clock.
Need